The British pioneered the policy of divide and rule, and the idea was quite simple. Create divisions within a community so they'll be busy fighting each other instead of fighting the British imperialists. And that's how they divided and ruled India. Now, decades later, China is trying the same. They've picked up Britain's playbook of divide and rule, and they're using it in South Asia, offering inducements to India's partners and neighbors and building military alliances with them. Tonight, we'll tell you what China has been up to and whether India should be concerned. Our story begins with the Maldives. Earlier this month, they signed a defense pact with China. The Maldives signed a pact with China. They're getting arms and training from Beijing. And this came right after they asked Indian troops to leave. Indians, as you know, were stationed in Mali for support and training. Their President Mohamad Muizzu asked them to leave. He asked the Indians to leave, and he's getting the Chinese in their place. In other words, India out, China in. That's what the Maldives is doing. And Beijing dispatched its generals to seal this transition. But their mission was not limited to Mali. It turns out that Mali was just their first stop. The PLA had a much bigger target in mind. After the Maldives, they traveled to two more countries, Sri Lanka and Nepal. We're talking about a top Chinese military delegation here. It went to the Maldives, Sri Lanka and Nepal. And this was a well-planned mission. So what was Beijing trying to do here? They released a statement, but it doesn't say very much. It says the PLA exchanged views with these countries on military relations and regional security issues. That's what Beijing says. We also have some reports from Sri Lanka and Nepal. They do not give us the full story, but they do shed some light. In Sri Lanka, a meeting was held on the 7th of March between Chinese and Lankan military leaders. This is according to the Lankan Defense Ministry. It says Beijing and Colombo are looking, and I'm quoting, are looking at more joint initiatives with a focus on maritime security. In fact, I have the Sri Lankan statement with me. It says, and I quote, the meeting provided a platform to explore avenues for joint initiatives on enhancing maritime security collaborations on mutual ground. Is this something that India should worry about? Well, there's good reason to be wary, because this statement is an indication of intent from both China and Sri Lanka. They want their militaries to work together closely. Plus, China is giving Sri Lanka military equipment. The latest transfer happened yesterday. Beijing gave Sri Lanka a stock of military equipment, stuff that can be used to defuse bombs. China just gave this equipment to Sri Lanka for free. This is part of a military grant. Beijing is trying similar tactics in Nepal. In Kathmandu, the PLA's team met several officials, including Nepal's army chief. Now, reports from the local press say that China is wooing Nepal with military gear. They're offering armored personnel carriers. They're also willing to install an ammunition plant for Nepal's army. Plus, they're pushing for joint military exercises between Nepal and China. And China also wants to train officers from Nepal's army. So there's a lot on the plate. We do not know about the terms and conditions. China's deals are usually opaque, but their pitch to Sri Lanka and Nepal is quite similar to the deal that they've struck with the Maldives. Look at the commitments they've made to Mali: free military assistance, weapon transfers, and close cooperation. And they want to do the same with the rest of India's neighbors, assuming that those deals are not already in place. And in each case, while the specifics may vary, China's overarching strategy is consistent. It's the policy of divide and rule. Divide the South Asian region, pit traditional friends against each other, and advance your own geopolitical interests. New Delhi has a new challenge on its hands, and it must find a way to counter China's nefarious designs. Now to the big story from India, the Citizenship Amendment Act, or the CAA. It's many things at the same time: a political promise, a new hope for persecuted migrants, a long pending demand, and a controversial law. It was passed back in December 2019. You may remember what happened next. A lot of protests and criticism, so the government put it on the back burner. But now it's back. The government of India has notified the rules for the CAA, basically how the law will be implemented. That's what they've come up with. Now, the CAA applies to six religious groups rather: Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Parsis, Christians and Buddhists. And these people must belong to any of these three countries: Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. So if you fit this bill, if you're from one of these three countries and follow one of these religions, then your citizenship to India will be fast-tracked. That is the law. Now, a couple of questions. One, why was this bill necessary? The government of India says to protect religious minorities in these countries: Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. Religious minorities face persecution here in a lot of cases. Thousands of them have already fled to India. The idea is to give them a new life. Question number 2, why are Muslims not part of this list? And that's been the biggest question really of the critics. Rights organizations are asking it, opposition parties are asking it, even Indian Muslims are asking it. So now the Home Minister of India has answered this question. Listen to this.
मुस्लिम आबादी के लिए ही वो हिस्सा आज भारत का भाग नहीं है। वो भूमि इसीलिए दे दी गई थी। फिर तो हर देश से अव्यवस्था से जो आना चाहिए, इसके लिए भारत के दरवाजे खोल लो। भारत कहां बचता है? अखंड भारत के जो लोग हिस्सा थे और जिन पर धार्मिक प्रताड़ना हुई है, उसको शरण देना मैं मानता हूं हमारी नैतिक जिम्मेदारी है और हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी।
But the debate will not end with this. The CAA has already been challenged in the Supreme Court of India. Some 200 petitions are pending. They say you cannot use religion to give citizenship. It violates the constitution. That's what the critics say. Plus, opposition parties do not like it. Some say they won't implement this law, like in the states of Kerala and West Bengal. So let's take a closer look at the technicalities. Let's understand what this buzz is about, what the controversy is about. What has changed between 2019 and now? Will this affect Indian minorities? And can states really refuse to implement a law? Now, the CAA requires a migrant to prove a few things, like your country of origin, your religion, your date of entry into India, and your knowledge of an Indian language. But how will this information be verified? Through documents. Earlier, you had to produce very specific papers. You had to come up with a valid passport or an Indian residential permit. But now that's gone. You can produce any identity document or certificate, maybe a school certificate or a birth certificate or a license, and this can also be used to determine your religion. So simply put, the threshold has been relaxed. It's now easier to prove that you're a migrant. Now we come to the date of entry. The CAA has a cutoff date. December 31st, 2014. You must have entered India before this date for you to qualify. Only then can you seek citizenship via the CAA. 31st December 2014. But how will that date be determined? Earlier you needed a visa plus other specific documents. But now it's been expanded. You can produce a variety of documents like a letter from court or a government office, a tenancy agreement, any document from a public sector bank, certificates from a local lawmaker, utility bills, even a marriage certificate. Any of this can prove your date of entry into India. Again, the idea is to lower the threshold to make it easier for people to get Indian citizenship. So can state governments refuse to implement this? Well, maybe not. Citizenship applications usually go to the district collector. And who does the collector report to? The state government. So technically states should or could have refused it. But the CAA rules call for a new body, a body that will report to the central government. Only they can receive and approve the citizenship requests. So expect a battle ahead. And now we come to the final question. Will this affect Indian minorities? The opposition says it will. They say the CAA will strip Indian Muslims of their citizenship. On what basis do they say this? What is their logic? For that, we'll have to go back to 2019. Back then, the CAA was never discussed alone. Another policy tagged along with it, and that was the NRC, the National Register of Citizens. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a list of all Indian citizens, a register. Those who do not feature on this list would eventually be deported. That was the idea. And the government said the NRC exercise would follow the CAA. So critics called it a ploy. First, give citizenship to non-Muslim migrants and then expel the Muslims. But now the equation seems to have changed. Home Minister Amit Shah was asked about this and he says there is no NRC now. He also said that no minority should fear the CAA rules.
असम में जो NRC की ऑर्डर हुए वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया की, इसका CAA से कोई लेन देन नहीं है। आसाम नहीं, देश के हर हिस्से में सीए लागू होगा। इस देश के अल्पसंख्यक माइनॉरिटीज या तो किसी और व्यक्ति को डरने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि सीए में किसी की नागरिकता लेने का प्रावधान ही नहीं है।
So what next? We're probably just weeks away from the election, so CA will feature heavily in it. Expect both sides to rake it up. As for the law itself, there's no closure yet. We have legal challenges pending. We also have a federal standoff in the offing. So this is a story that is far from over. In China, the crisis in the property sector is also far from over. A new developer faces the risk of collapse. It's called Vanke. It's a major player in the real estate sector in China, and it's been sinking. Unable to pay its debt, the company owes some 34 billion yuan, that's almost $5 billion US dollars, and this debt must be repaid before June 2025, before June next year. But Vanke may not be able to do that. They may not have the cash to do it. So now Beijing is stepping in, extending support and propping up the company, which has taken many observers by surprise because in the past, China has let big developers fail. Since 2020, more than 50 developers in China have either defaulted or failed to make any debt payments, 50. Just last year, 10 Chinese developers missed debt payments. And in all these cases, Beijing just stood by and watched. But Vanke has been lucky. China has made arrangements to rescue it. It has issued orders to 12 banks. They've been instructed to provide financing to Vanke. The question is why? Why is this developer getting special treatment? Because it's not just about the developer anymore. It's also about China's economy. If Vanke too is allowed to fail, it will break the economy. Because this is China's second largest developer we are talking about. It started some 40 years ago by this man, Wang Shi. Now, Wang Shi is a leading figure in Chinese real estate. He is often called the godfather of the industry in China, and he is believed to be close to the state. In 2017, Vanke faced a hostile takeover bid. Guess who stepped up to rescue it? The government of Shanghai. They bought shares in Vanke, and they helped Wang Shi survive. Even today, Shanghai owns around a quarter of Vanke, making it the company's largest shareholder. These shares are owned by the Shenzhen Metro Group, which is a state-owned firm. So the new bailout should not come as a surprise. But there's more to this relationship. China needs Vanke as much as the company needs the state because China's economy is struggling, and they're betting on real estate to revive it. Earlier this month, the Chinese premier made some promises. Listen to this.
We need to optimize real estate policies, promote the stable and healthy development of the real estate market, coordinate the resolution of local debt risks, and stable development.
Vanke is instrumental to this plan. So far, this company has been able to weather the storm that engulfed China's real estate sector. When others were defaulting, Vanke was still ripe for investment. But towards the end of 2023, the company's fortunes changed. There was a drastic drop in sales. Last year, sales dropped by 10%. This year, the numbers have worsened. January saw a decline of 32%, which caused panic among Vanke investors. Since November 2023, their shares have lost close to 30% in value, and this panic spread to the creditors too. There were murmurs of a cash crunch. Reports like this one surfaced. It said Vanke is speaking to its creditors. It wants an extension on some debts. And this week, the crisis intensified when Moody's downgraded Vanke. It classified the company's debt as junk. That's how Vanke got into this mess. China may be betting on its revival, but this crisis has highlighted a fundamental problem with China and its real estate sector. The problem is that there is no demand for real estate. The market doesn't have enough buyers, and that's a big problem for companies like Vanke because real estate developers need a steady flow of cash to survive. They need to sell homes in order to keep building more. But that's not happening. There simply isn't enough cash coming in, so the company cannot finish its projects. Vanke has contract liabilities worth 408 billion yuan, which is around $56 billion. And what are contract liabilities? It's mostly money deposited by home buyers to buy an apartment, for instance, the money that you give a builder. But chances are this apartment is yet to be finished. It's not ready. So the home buyer's money is stuck. In the past, China would leave them in the lurch, but it can no longer afford to do so.
On the supply side, it is necessary to reform and improve the basic systems for development, financing, and sale of commercial property. The sale of existing houses should be promoted in a forceful and orderly way.
Well, that's how desperate China is. It wants to revive home sales, even if that means deploying what it calls forceful measures. The last thing China can afford is another failed developer. Our next story is about the global chip war. We've been telling you about it, about how chips are now a strategic asset and how countries want to control supply and production. And by countries, we mostly mean the US and China. They want the control. Basically, the US wants to cut China off from the chip industry. So it's been putting restrictions on Beijing. And this, of course, impacts China. But it also affects global chip manufacturers, the companies. It affects them too. So they have to look for alternatives. And a number of countries are vying to be that alternative. Vietnam, Thailand, even India, all of them have thrown their hat in the ring. But guess who is winning this chip war? Not America, not China, Vietnam, Thailand or India. As of today, it's Malaysia. An old player in the chip-making game, though not talked about so much. Malaysia is fast becoming a favored destination for chip manufacturing. Companies are pouring in billions of dollars. Intel, for instance, is planning to invest $7 billion in Malaysia. German chip maker Infineon is bringing in another 7. NVIDIA, the company at the forefront of artificial intelligence chips, will spend $4.3 billion in Malaysia. There are other firms as well. Austria's AT&S, Texas Instruments, Ericsson, Germany's Bosch, America's Lam Research. All these firms are investing in Malaysia. They're pouring money into 3 regions in particular. Penang, known on the tourist circuit for its beaches, and the nearby states of Kedah and Perak. Now, these areas are drawing in the who's who of chip makers. The obvious question, I guess, is why? Why has Malaysia become the go-to destination for semiconductor investment? Well, because it has a head start. The chip war may be making waves now, but Malaysia has been a chip-making hub for more than half a century. Yes, that long. Intel set up its first overseas factory in 1972, and this factory was in Penang. Malaysia had courted the firm aggressively in the 1970s. It offered them a free trade zone, meaning tax breaks. Malaysian labour was also relatively cheap. The country is a former British colony, meaning an English-speaking workforce. And there was the convenience of a shipping port nearby. Now, all these factors won Intel over. The company agreed to set up shop in Penang. And that created a foothold for chip makers. 52 years later, Penang and its neighbouring states have become a chip hub. Intel was followed by AMD, then Hitachi, then HP, Hewlett-Packard. All these companies have been investing in Malaysia for decades, making Penang one of the first Silicon Valleys of the East. But here's the catch. The first chip manufacturing jobs in Malaysia were not high-tech. It was bottom-rung assembly work, the back end of the chip-making supply chain. Malaysia was chosen for grunt work, and this has persisted for decades. Only now is Malaysia being considered for more advanced manufacturing. The new $7 billion investment by Intel, it is for advanced chip packaging, for something called 3D packaging. And this is something new for Malaysia. But the country was chosen because Intel already has a presence there. They worked in Malaysia for years, which is why it was preferred to, say, a Vietnam or a Thailand or even India. That's why Malaysia was picked. It's a classic case of first mover's advantage. Malaysia took a gamble in the 70s. They may not have guessed how big or how crucial chips would become. But they decided to bring in the foreign investment. And now, half a century later, Malaysia is reaping the rewards. But that's not all. There's another side to this as well. Apart from good foresight, this is also about shrewd politics. Because Malaysia is friendly with both the US and China, it champions something called active neutrality. So it's getting investments from both sides, the West and China. Mainland Chinese firms have been setting up plants in Penang. They're worried about further US sanctions, so entering joint ventures in Malaysia is a way for them to skirt restrictions. The US won't ban chips made in Malaysia. It already imports more than 20% of its chips from this country, more than its imports from Taiwan or Vietnam or anywhere else, 20% from Malaysia. So Chinese companies hope that if they make in Malaysia, they can get around American embargoes. And Malaysia is happy to play both sides, get investments from both rivals. The question is this sustainable? Or will this blow up in their faces? We'll have to wait and see. On this show, we've reported extensively on corporate layoffs. But tonight, we're talking about a diplomatic one. Poland has recalled 50 ambassadors in one go. 50. Even news noobs will say that's a lot. You don't recall 50 envoys randomly. It's a well-planned political move. The question is why? Poland's foreign ministry is not saying very much. They claim it will help in professional implementation of difficult tasks. Such a ChatGPT statement. But the real reason is this. All these ambassadors were appointed by Poland's previous government. So the new leadership does not trust them. It wants them out. Prime Minister Donald Tusk hinted at this. He says it's important to have a loyal team. Now, we do not know where these ambassadors were posted or who they are or who is replacing them. But this trend is not new. We can tell you that. Poland's previous government was right-wing. They ruled for 8 years until 2023. And that's when the current government, this government, took over. And this government is not right-wing. It's a pro-European regime. So after taking over, they have purged officials appointed by the former regime. We saw that in December too. The heads of Poland's state-run TV and radio channels were fired. All of them appointees of the previous government. Now, at its core, this is a domestic issue. It's a clash of two ideologies. But imagine seeing this from the outside. Imagine the confusion it leads to. And it's not just Poland. Most Western countries cannot decide on foreign policy, it seems. It depends on who's in power. In other words, there is no policy continuity. Let's look at some of the major players, starting with the United States. We have Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Biden wants a nuclear deal with Iran. Donald Trump does not want it. Biden wants to stay in the Paris Climate Accords. Trump does not want to. Biden wants to keep arming Ukraine. Trump is non-committal. Biden wants to invest more in NATO and European allies. Trump doesn't want to. These are major policy differences. It makes it tough for other countries to deal with America. Imagine you're sitting in Tehran. You're a member of the Iranian regime. You work hard to sign a nuclear deal with the US, but come November, Trump wins the White House again and he decides to cancel the whole thing again. What does that make you? A fool for trusting the Americans. Same case in Britain. The ruling Conservatives oppose a ceasefire in Gaza, but the opposition Labour do not. They want a ceasefire. In France, it's the same story. President Macron is a big supporter of the European Union. His rival is not so much. Her name is Marine Le Pen. She wants to take France out of NATO's command structure, end military cooperation with Germany and maintain distance with Europe. Canada is another example. Justin Trudeau has a clear anti-India policy tilt, but his opponent does not. He's promising to repair relations with India. Now, such contrasts are not limited to major players. Look at Slovakia, for example. Their last government was pro-Ukraine. They gave military aid worth $700 million. But the new prime minister has stopped it. He says not a single bullet will be given. Do you see the problem here? Elections changing domestic policy is understandable. But on foreign policy, you expect consistency. You expect predictability. If not, it is hard to build a partnership. Look at India, for example. The ruling party and the opposition have different outlooks, different ideologies. Their domestic policy is different. But on foreign policy, they seem to be on the same page. And that has helped India. The best example is our relationship with the United States. It started with a Congress government after the Cold War, and it reached its peak under the current BJP government. And that is continuity. Without that, geopolitics goes for a toss. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is fascinating for me because, the southwestern part of Bengal and look at these numbers. This is where the maximum gains are happening for the BJP. The southwestern part, which is Bankura, Purulia, Jungle Mahal, these are places where the BJP did very well back in 2019. They did lose out just a tad bit in 2021, the assembly election, but it seems like they are racing away in this part of Bengal. They're also doing very well in the northern part, which is Cooch Behar, Alipurdwar, which again, I think they had 5 MPs from the northern belt of Bengal, again doing very well. The Trinamool only 1 MP from North Bengal, whereas the BJP getting 7. In the Kolkata and Greater Kolkata region, the BJP gets none, the TMC gets all 5. And in Southeast, which is North and South 24 Parganas, it's the TMC which still manages to have an edge, but the sweepstakes are evened out a bit. It's 5 to the BJP and 7 to the Trinamool Congress. But really, where the game has completely changed in favor of the BJP, and I want Rahul Shivshankar to weigh in on this, is in the tribal belt, Jungle Mahal, Bankura, Purulia, in the southwestern part of the state, bordering Bihar, many of those districts. Do you see this happening, Rahul Shivshankar? Because if it does, and I say this again, if this happens, if it is BJP 25 and Trinamool Congress 17, then I shudder to think what the Assembly of 2026, the West Bengal Assembly elections of 2026 might portend.
Why would you shudder? It's not as if the heavens would have come down. But nonetheless, let me just come in here. There are 4 states that we've called before this one. 3 of them were tribal dominated states. Orissa, which is of course on the one side of Bengal. Then you have Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand.
Yeah.
And then you have parts of Andhra and Telangana, of course. So there is a consistent pattern. The tribal vote is moving towards the BJP. Our poll is establishing this. Now, by how much and all of that, one can't say. But there is a definite swing, and therefore the BJP is registering a presence in some of these states. Number 2, very importantly, look at data. There were 21 seats where victory margin was less than the 3rd position candidate votes. Now, why was this? Because the TMC had 43% of the vote, the BJP had 40% of the vote. In Southwest, it lost 6 of these seats by between 3%, 0 and 3%. Maybe, I don't know, those seats have come back. One of those seats, and in the overall number, out of 21, 11 of 21, the TMC led by the slimmest of margins. 8 out of 21, the BJP led by the slimmest of margins. So there can be flux. It's difficult to call this one. There's an equal vote share. But the growth is happening on the BJP side of the fence.
Yeah.
The 42, 43%, in fact, I think the TMC has lost a percent if it's at 42.
Yes.
And the BJP is picked up 2%.
Yeah, and
that tells you that
it's picked up from the left and it's picked up from some of the others. Professor Dinesh Vashne is with us.
Let's talk about
Kibarwal is with us.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come back to Zaka Jacob, as I say, and Manojit Mandal is also with us. Some poor bandwidth with Manojit Mandal. We'll try and sort that out and make up for it. Let's look at 2019. Yes, Zaka.
The vote share, the BJP's vote share has gone up by 2% from 40% to 42%, and the TMC's has slipped by about 1.2% from 43.2 down to 42. But I think, what is fascinating for me, Anand, Rahul, Chopin, is, look, this is the southwestern part of Bengal. The BJP had maximized in these seats last time around. What our poll is suggesting is that they'll get more in the southwestern part. Here in the southeastern part, which is south and north 24 Parganas, you have districts like Nadia, Malda, all of that, all the way up till here. This is where the TMC dominated in the last election.
Now let's turn our attention to Russia. The country goes to polls tomorrow. Voting booths will be open from March 15th to 17th, and early voting has started in some regions and for Russians who are abroad. In all, more than 110 million Russians are eligible to vote to choose their next president. But let's face it, it will be Vladimir Putin. Putin has been in charge since 1999. He is eligible to rule until 2036 at least. So we have to wonder, what is the point of these elections? Why waste time and money on an obvious outcome? Well, it turns out there is a reason why Putin insists on elections. Our next report has the details.
It is necessary to reaffirm our unity and determination to move forward together. Each of your votes is valuable and significant. Therefore, I urge you to exercise your right to vote in the next 3 days.
Russian President Vladimir Putin sent out this message today. He is urging all eligible Russians to come out and vote from Friday till Sunday. Some booths are already open. Early voting is taking place for Russians in other parts of the world, like Syria, Serbia, and the annexed parts of Ukraine. Putin hopes this encourages the people back home to turn out as well. Now, you may be wondering, why would Putin want to hold elections? Why would he want any challenge to his rule? Well, is there really any challenge though? After all, Putin has ruled Russia since 1999. He was elected Prime Minister in August that year, and then he became acting president on the 31st of December, when former leader Boris Yeltsin resigned. Putin won the election held in the year 2000 and served till 2008. But then came a twist. His term limit was up. But Putin wasn't done. So he switched back to being Prime Minister. 4 years later, in 2012, Putin was president again. By then, the presidential term was increased from 4 to 6 years, thanks to some constitutional rewriting. That rewriting happened again in 2020. And Putin's term limits were reset again, meaning constitutionally, Putin can stay on as president till 2036. By then, who knows, there may be yet another rewrite. But all this song and dance begs the question, why does Putin do this? Why does he hold elections in the first place? After all, they are cumbersome, expensive events. The last Russian election in 2018 cost over 14 billion rubles. This time around, Russia has allocated 33 billion rubles from the federal budget. That's a lot of money for a country at war to spend on a pointless exercise. So then why is Putin holding this election? Well, the simple answer is legitimacy.
I'd like to emphasize that the only source of power in our country is the people. This key legal provision is enshrined in the Constitution. Its main meaning is that only you, citizens of Russia, determine the fate of the fatherland.
If the people have chosen, what right does anyone else have to demand a leader's ouster? Which is why elections are crucial. Of course, they don't need to be competitive. Putin has swept every election since 2000. His critics say that is because they are rigged. Putin has been accused of sidelining opposition or having them assassinated. The allegations have been made this time as well. Alexei Navalny is dead. Numerous contenders were disqualified. The three remaining candidates are all aligned with Putin and his policies. They've refused to criticize him at all, and they're expected to fetch a grand total of 13% of the vote, combined. So, Putin is likely to sweep these polls with over 85% of the vote share. Now, you can argue that Putin doesn't need to bother with this, that he will always be Russia's legitimate ruler no matter what the West or any outsider says. But Putin himself insists on the whole charade. So, no matter the cost, Russia will keep holding polls, irrespective of what the world thinks about them.
Hosting multinational events is considered prestigious, like the Olympics or the FIFA World Cup. One tournament can immortalize you, except the Commonwealth Games. They become the kryptonite of sport. The next Commonwealth Games are in 2026, but there's still no host. Australia pulled out last year. They thought the Games would cost around $1.7 billion, but as preparations began, the budget ballooned. It was expected to reach $4 billion, the cost of the Games, $4 billion. So Australia said, no thanks. Since then, the 2026 edition is without a host, and the organizers are getting desperate. They have now approached Malaysia. Reports say they're offering the country $120 million. In exchange, Malaysia must host the Games. The talks are in advanced stages, but Malaysia has not agreed yet. And what if they do not? What happens then? Maybe cancel the whole thing. The Commonwealth Games are a glitch in the current world. They were first organized in the 1930s. Back then, they were called the British Empire Games. The idea was to bring together Britain and its colonies to show how united the empire was. Decades later, the name was changed. It became the Commonwealth Games in 1978. Around 70 countries participate today. They're all former colonies of Britain. And you can see why that's problematic. These countries are trying to move on from their colonial past, but the Commonwealth is tying them down, sort of like a rude reminder. Even financially, it makes no sense. In 2022, South Africa was supposed to host the Games. But at the last minute, they were removed. Why? Because they had no money. And that's when Britain stepped in. The city of Birmingham hosted the 2022 edition. Less than a year later, they declared bankruptcy. So most countries have got the message, the Commonwealth Games won't make you money. And there's a reason why. Two things make sporting events popular. One, big names or celebrity athletes. And two, intense competition. The Commonwealth Games do not have either. Just look at the 2022 edition. Top sprinters like Shericka Jackson and Andre de Grasse decided to skip. The organizers were quite angry about it. They said the athletes would regret the decision. Same with Usain Bolt. Arguably the biggest draw at the recent Olympics. Guess how many Commonwealth Games he's attended? Just one. So top athletes tend to stay away, which means less crowd, fewer sponsors and less media coverage. So to recap, the Games have historical stigma. There is little competition, no big names and not much money to be made. So why is it still a thing? Because Britain persists with it. Let's go back to the last edition. When South Africa was removed as host, Buckingham Palace was worried. After all, 2022 was Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee. It was the 70th anniversary of her accession. So the palace did not want to be embarrassed, and reports say they reached out to the government, and that's how Birmingham stepped in. Now a similar effort is underway. Malaysia is being offered $120 million to host the Games. It tells you how dire the situation is. But is there a way back? Well, a lot depends on India. We are the biggest economy in the Commonwealth, also the biggest market, so India's participation could be key. But New Delhi is not interested. And rightly so. Last year, the Sports Ministry decided to bid for a bigger prize, the 2036 Olympics. At that point, the government was asked about the Commonwealth Games. Would India be interested in hosting one? The answer was a resounding no. As we see it, there are just two ways forward for the Commonwealth Games. One is to downsize it, forget the 280 events, forget hosting 5,000 athletes, think about a more pocket-friendly competition. Or two, scrap the whole thing. And we say the second option is the better one. Now on to West Asia, where the US and Iran are talking. Well, not directly. Reports suggest that the two sides held indirect talks in Oman. Secret talks. A lot was discussed, but the sticking point was the Houthis. Since October, the Houthis have attacked ships in the Red Sea. The US has tried everything, a global maritime force, direct strikes, bombing Yemen, whatever they could, but nothing has worked. The Houthi attacks continue. So now they're asking Tehran for help. The US wants Iran to rein in its proxies. Will it work? Our next report tells you.
What do you do when you face a problem? You try to deal with it. You ask for help. But what if the help here is your biggest foe? It's a catch-22 situation, and one that America is facing in West Asia. A report suggests that US officials were in Oman in January. Apparently, they held secret talks with Iran. The two sides can't see eye to eye, but they're meeting. Why? Because the US wants Iran to rein in the Houthis. It wants them to stop the attacks in the Red Sea. Of course, it's not a request it could make directly. The US and Iran are enemies. They haven't had direct talks in ages. These were indirect talks. On the US side was Brett McGurk, White House's top advisor for West Asia, and Abram Paley, the Iranian envoy. On Tehran's side, there was Ali Bagheri Kani, the country's deputy foreign minister. Oman acted as a mediator. This was the first such negotiation in 10 months, so there was a lot of ground to cover. The two sides discussed the Iranian nuclear program. The US raised concerns about it. They discussed the war in Asia, but the sticking point was the Houthis. Since October, the Houthis have attacked ships in the Red Sea. The US has hit back. It's responded with direct strikes, but nothing has deterred the Houthis. The attacks continue. Just 2 days ago, the Houthis fired missiles at a Liberian-flagged container ship. So Washington has now turned to Iran. It wants Tehran to rein in its proxies. Iran calls them the axis of resistance. There's the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and other armed groups in Iraq and Syria. Since October 7th, Iranian proxies have attacked US forces 170 times. But nothing has bothered Washington much like the Houthis. They've attacked commercial ships. Trade has been disrupted. Supply chains are affected. And in a gloomy global economy, this spells more doom. And the US is just not ready for that. Can Iran really help? The Houthis do enjoy Iranian support, and US reports say Iranian Revolutionary Guards are embedded inside Yemen. But there are doubts over Iran's control over the group. Some reports suggest Iran has very little direct control. Others mentioned that the Houthis operate with some degree of autonomy. Even Iran says that the rebels that control northern Yemen operate independently. So the Houthis seem to be acting on their own. The US may have asked Iran for help, but no one knows how much they can actually help. However, these talks are a clear indication that US actions in the Red Sea haven't worked. They announced a global maritime force. They hit back at the Houthis. They launched strikes in Yemen. But nothing has deterred the Houthis. They are still striking ships. They've launched 99 attacks since October. These so-called secret talks happened in January, but nothing has changed since then in the high seas.
Yesterday was a historic day for the European Union. It has passed the EU AI Act, the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, a comprehensive framework to deal with the risks of artificial intelligence. It's the first for the bloc and a first for the world too. Europe says it will enable innovation while safeguarding fundamental rights. It aims to make tech more human-centric. So what does this new law say? How will it deal with tools like ChatGPT? Does it tackle deep fakes? What are the punishments? And will other countries follow suit? Our next report tells you all about the world's first AI law.
I think today is again an historic day on our long path towards regulation of AI. We are finally approving from the Parliament side the AI Act.
It's called the EU AI Act, a comprehensive artificial intelligence law. Basically, frameworks to control AI.
And it is adopted. Congratulations on this seminal work.
It's a first for the European Union and a first for the world. It's been endorsed by the EU Parliament. Now it just needs a formal approval of EU states. The Act has a simple principle. It wants to make technology human-centric. So the idea is to regulate AI based on its capacity to harm society. The higher the risk, the stricter the rules. First, let's tell you how the Act defines artificial intelligence. A basic definition of AI is computers that do tasks and solve problems like humans. But this Act takes a more detailed approach. It defines it as a machine-based system designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy. That's a lot of tech jargon, but basically it refers to the same things. That also includes chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini. So how does the bill tackle risks posed by AI systems? The Act ranks AI systems. They can be low risk, mid risk or high risk. High risk systems include those deployed in banking, schools or critical infrastructure. They have to be accurate. A human must be overlooking them. Plus, their usage has to be monitored. If they directly affect citizens, they have the right to question these systems. Then there are systems that are prohibited. These are AI systems that can cause harm. They can affect the lives of people. For example, a social scoring system. Basically, systems that classify people based on social behavior or personality. China has one. But it is a strict no for the European Union. Which brings us to systems that are exempted. Not all AI tools come under this act. For example, AI tools designed for military, defense or national security, those designed for science and research are also exempted. Facial recognition tools are allowed, but only for law enforcement. What about deep fakes? The Act aims to tackle that. If content is artificially generated or altered, it needs to be labeled. People, companies, bodies need to flag it. Then there's generative AI. It's the type of artificial intelligence that can create content. Text, imagery, audio, pretty much anything. The likes of ChatGPT and DALL-E. The EU says they must meet specific requirements. They must cooperate with copyright law. They must publish the data they are using to train these systems. Everything must be transparent. What happens if the act is not followed? There are fines. They range from 7.5 million euros to 35 million euros. There are fines for giving incorrect information to regulators, breaching provisions of the Act, and developing or deploying banned tools. So how have tech companies reacted? It's been a mixed response. Tech companies have welcomed it, but they remain wary about the specifics. The Act will become a law around May. They will then have around 2 years, as implementation will begin from 2025 only. So companies still have time. While the EU is a trendsetter when it comes to this AI Act, the US mandates AI developers to share data with the government. China has also introduced a patchwork of AI laws. As we realize the dangers of AI, other countries now might follow suit.
The year was 1952. The US saw its single largest outbreak of polio. This was 3 years before the preventive vaccine, the polio vaccine, was developed. 58,000 cases were recorded in America. Of those, 21,000 people were left with a disability. Among them was a 6-year-old boy, Paul Alexander. When he became ill, doctors operated on him and saved his life. But polio is a difficult foe. It is a virus that kills by suffocation. It damages communication between the nervous system and muscles. And in many cases, this is followed by paralysis. So muscles that help someone breathe, for instance, no longer work. And this is exactly what happened to Alexander. He was alive, but polio meant that his body could no longer breathe on its own. So doctors came up with an answer: an iron lung. Like most polio survivors at the time, he was placed inside an iron lung. This is a metal cylinder. It enclosed his body up to his neck and allowed him to breathe. And here's how it works. It rhythmically changes air pressure in the chamber. It sucks air out of the cylinder, forces the patient's lungs to expand, so they take in the oxygen. Then air is let back into the cylinder, and the same process is reversed. The lungs deflate and you breathe out. So Alexander could breathe again. But there was a catch. Like most polio survivors inside an iron lung, Alexander was not expected to survive for long, but he defied expectations.
The iron lung is home to me now. It's my friend and it's my enemy. In the end, it keeps me alive.
For nearly 70 years, Alexander lived inside that machine, and this week he died at the age of 78. But why are we talking about him? For one simple reason: Alexander did not let his iron lung become an iron cage. In other words, he did not let his condition limit his ambitions. For starters, he had a learning mindset. He adapted to the iron lung. He learned breathing techniques, which allowed him to leave the machine for a few hours at a time.
Many people would go crazy in it. And I watched them do it in the hospital. But you adapt and you learn to do what you need to do to accomplish your goals and your dreams with the help of the iron lung.
And accomplish he did. He graduated from high school, he was second in his class, then he earned a law degree, practiced law for 3 decades, published a memoir, became an advocate for polio vaccination. He even made a world record. Advances in medicine made iron lungs obsolete by the 1960s. They were replaced by portable ventilators, but Alexander's chest muscles were too damaged to use them. So he stuck to the iron lung and eventually made a Guinness World Record for the longest time lived inside one. But maybe his biggest accomplishment was this: learning the ways of Gen Z. He set up a TikTok account this year, which made him an even bigger celebrity among the young. His videos garnered millions of likes. But whether through TikTok or by means of the life that he led, Alexander quietly proved one thing: that resilience is all about perspective. And I'm sure many would agree, the world's biggest athletes and leaders, the biggest achievers, they all know that life is a mental game. And mental toughness is trainable. Sure, everyone is born with a varying degree of it, but you can train yourself to be tougher. You can work on yourself. It also depends on your family life, of course, your education, your personal circumstances, but it's not a fixed quota. Mental toughness can be taught and learned, and gaining mental strength is one of the most important things that anyone can do. Or as Alexander once said, I knew if I was going to do anything with my life, it was going to have to be a mental thing.
Poll is suggesting that the TMC's dominance in the southeastern part and also in the central eastern part of Bengal will reduce if it turns out that the BJP gets 25 and the TMC gets 17. Of course, the BJP had a big presence in the north of Bengal as well last time around.
Yeah.
That seems to be the case this time around as well. For me, the fascinating thing is that, again, I reiterate, this poll happened before the CAA. These are the parts that border Bangladesh. These are the parts where the TMC has done exceptionally well, not just in the Lok Sabha of 2019, but more in the Assembly of 2021. If we have a poll, Smita.
Mamata Banerjee has sustained a, quote, major injury, says TMC. There's a picture that they have posted on Twitter. She seems to have a head injury. If you want to show the picture, she seems to have had a head injury and she's bleeding in the head, and there's some stitch marks on her head. It's their word is that she's had, and it looks pretty bad. The picture, I don't know whether you can zoom
yeah,
in.
it's an unfortunate turn of events. She is at the SSKM hospital and she has had some injury there right at the center. It's on her forehead. We are just trying to ensure that the visuals can be a little disturbing as we put it right away. So we'll just put it and treat it a bit and then put it out. But that's the update that's just come. Professor Dinesh Varshney, Priyanka Tibrewal with us, and we also have Manojit Mandal. Now this is an instance, we'll try and connect with Kamalika to try and understand what has happened, because they've showed that she has sustained injury, and it's the Trinamool Congress AITMC official handle that has tweeted and said, our chairperson Mamata official sustained a major injury. Please keep her in your prayers. So this is what is the update. We've got the pictures. We'd like not put it out on air right now. We just treat it a bit and then put it out. Now that's an unfortunate turn of events, but we'll go back to Kamalika and get an update as to what happened, where it happened in just a bit. Right now, staying back and keeping the focus on the News 18 mega opinion poll at this point, Professor Dinesh Varshney, the left is nowhere in sight. It's a two-way fight between the BJP and the Trinamool right now.
Let's get to Bengal, the region-wise breakup. This is fascinating for me because, you know, the southwestern part of Bengal, and look at these numbers. This is where the maximum gains are happening for the BJP. The southwestern part, which is Bankura, Purulia, Jungle Mahal, these are places where the BJP did very well back in 2019. They did lose out just a tad bit in 2021, the assembly election, But it seems like they are racing away in this part of Bengal. They're also doing very well in the northern part, which is Cooch Behar, Alipurdwar, which again, I think they had 5 MPs from the northern belt of Bengal, again doing very well. The Trinamool only 1 MP from North Bengal, whereas the BJP getting 7. In the Kolkata and Greater Kolkata region, the BJP gets none, the TMC gets all 5. And in Southeast, which is North and South 24 Parganas, it's the TMC which still manages to have an edge, but the sweepstakes are evened out a bit. It's 5 to the BJP and 7 to the Trinamool Congress. But really, where the game has completely changed in favor of the BJP, and I want Rahul Shivshankar to weigh in on this, is in the tribal belt, Jungle Mahal, Bankura, Purulia, in the southwestern part of the state, bordering Bihar, many of those districts. Do you see this happening, Rahul Shivshankar? Because if it does, and I say this again, if this happens, if it is BJP 25 and Trinamool Congress 17, then I shudder to think what the Assembly of 2026, the West Bengal Assembly elections of 2026 might portend.
Why would you shudder? It's not as if the heavens would have come down, but nonetheless.
Namaste, Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. You are on CNN News 18, part of the News 18 Mega Opinion Poll, part 2 of the News 18 Network's mega coverage of Bharat's biggest opinion poll. Over the course of the next few hours, Rahul Shivshankar, Shivani Gupta, and of course Zaka Jacob, who will get into the mix in a bit, will get you big numbers from 12 other states. In part 1 of the opinion poll survey, the News 18 Mega Opinion Poll, we brought you the complete picture of 242 seats across 9 states of Bihar, Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Haryana, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. The big numbers across 242 seats that give the NDA a clear edge. So far, the NDA has almost a 3-time lead over the India Alliance. But what will be the scenario across the remaining 301 seats over the next remaining 12 other states? In just a bit, we will bring you the opinion poll of 2 big states, that of Karnataka and Assam. But ahead of that, let's recap the overall Bharat numbers across 242 seats. Now, it clearly gives an edge. It clearly gives an edge. It clearly gives an edge to the NDA with 174 seats out of 242, 61 to the INDI alliance. But what's the basis of this survey? How has this survey been conducted? We'd like to recap the survey methodology once again, ladies and gentlemen. 21 major states accounting for 95% of the Lok Sabha constituencies have been covered. 1,18,616 have been polled with a questionnaire. It's a computer-aided personal interview or CAPI in 11 languages. A total of 518 Lok Sabha constituencies have been covered. So 518 out of 543, nearly 95% overall of Bharat has been covered across these 21 states and union territories. 210 interviews have been conducted in each Lok Sabha constituency. 3 Vidhan Sabha constituencies in each Lok Sabha seat have been covered. 5 polling booths have been selected via random sampling. That's the extent of this, what we can very proudly say, most widespread, comprehensive and exhaustive opinion poll, the News 18 Mega Opinion Poll. Day 1, these are the states that were covered. Uttar Pradesh, where it was a clear sweep for the NDA, 77 out of 80 seats to the NDA. Then Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Bihar. These were some of the standout states out of the 9 states that were covered. What are the big takeaways? Historic 77 seats for the BJP in Uttar Pradesh. If you look at the numbers, And in Tamil Nadu, the NDA gets and breaks open its account, 5 seats there, 30 seats to the DMK Congress India Alliance. If you look at the states of Kerala, 14 seats to the UDF, 4 to the LDF. So the LDF pinching back 4 seats, but 2 seats to the NDA. Many were very surprised whether that will really happen. In Bihar, it's 39 out of 40, 38 out of 40. Last time it was 39 out of 40. This time it's 38 out of 40 for the NDA. INDI Alliance getting 2 seats.
Let me just quickly break it down. 174 out of 242 called yesterday, with NDA needing 100 out of 301 more for a simple majority. To today, we'll just have to see that conversion rate. It has to win 1 out of 3 seats that we called today. If it needs to just get to where it was, past the halfway mark, not even to where it was, in fact. And can it get that sort of ratio, 1 out of 3 seats as we project them? That's the million-dollar question. But the good news, at least for the NDAs, they'll take heart from this. In Uttar Pradesh, plus 7%, vote share swing in its favor over 2019. Bihar, 5%. In Haryana, 4%. In Delhi, 1.5%. In Punjab, 3.5% swing in its favor. And in the 2 states that are actually creating ripples, and this survey is making a lot of news for, is the projection on Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Tamil Nadu, 10% vote share jump for the BJP, giving it, at least according to our survey, 5 seats there out of 39. Huge number. It will be seen as a massive breakthrough. In Kerala, 2 out of 20, a jump of about 5% in the vote share. That's one of the reasons why these numbers are looking inflated. But let me give you some very interesting statistics. The quality of the victory will be the key. So today when we really look at this, we have to analyze if the BJP is actually doing better than it did in 2019. And if it's a tight election, then this number will tell us. What are the numbers? BJP won 224 seats in 2019 with 50% vote share. So those 224 in 2019 were won with 50% plus vote share. 88 more than 2014. We need to see if it can stay with those vote shares. If it doesn't, this could be an open contest, viewers, let me tell you. And let me now take you back to the other side. Why is it that the BJP decided to quickly approach JDU, perhaps break the Shiv Sena, and also laser focus on the SAD? There could be backroom talks going on, we don't know, but this is a very telling number. The non-BJP parties secured a vote share of 50% plus in 117 seats. So, BJP got those in 224, but the non-BJP parties got them in 117 seats. Now, these very interestingly include Shiv Sena, which are the United Shiv Sena, the JDU and the SAD. And you see where the BJP is hit hard. It wants those parties weakened so it can retain that number and perhaps exceed. Remember, the number now Mr. Modi set is not 303, it's 370, and for the NDA 400 plus. That's why this concerted effort over 5 years to break down the Shiv Sena, to break down, win back the JDU, and to of course focus hard on the other side and try to break down the alliance game. Intriguingly, very interesting, this jump in vote share for the BJP, and I'm leaving it back to you, in those 224 seats, did not yield many more than obviously 2014. So while from 88 they went to a huge number of 224, and that means, as you can see, 88 more than 2014. It didn't get them many more seats. The vote share increased in seats where it's already quite strong.
Correct.
It needs to jump up in seats where it is not strong. See, to make that conversion 1-3.
Overall, what we are looking at is, I think somewhere the Prime Minister has shifted the dynamic. He has said 370 and 400 par. Technically, in our minds, ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember it's 272 par. If the NDA crosses 272, they are back in government. And if they go 300, then they are comfortable. Now, 303 is the last time around, 325, 330 plus overall for the NDA. That's where the Prime Minister has shifted the goalpost. But basis on this opinion poll, Shivani Gupta is there on the wall with us.
But the point is, had they not done what they've done to the Shiv Sena, not won back the JDU, it could have been a very tight contest.
See, even now it is
Very
about
tight.
retention.
Yeah.
You have to also gain. You have to make more. So 303 to 370.
So it needs to break
you have
out
to get
of those
67 more
224
seats.
seats.
Yeah,
To get more than 30-40% of the vote share
242
there.
का तो report card निकल गया. 301 का निकलने वाला. Yes, Shivani.
No,
yes.
you talked very rightly about how the BJP, led by the Prime Minister, have themselves extended their expectations to that 400 par mark, and that's going to be historic. And you talked about where do they gain. Now, yesterday, as Rahul very rightly mentioned, what was the headline of our opinion poll, the Mega News 18 opinion poll? 2 seats in Kerala, 5 seats in Tamil Nadu. Now, a lot of people are debating this still this evening. And today, we're going to actually talk about the other big southern states as well. We've got Andhra, Telangana, Karnataka results coming up in just a bit. And these are states a lot has happened. Karnataka went back to Congress. Telangana has gone to Congress. You've got Andhra where the BJP and the TDP for the first time since 2018 are coming back together.
True.
So a lot to watch out for.
Correct. But if you were to look at that belt, interestingly, let's keep Karnataka out. If you were to look Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, that's about 100 seats, ladies and gentlemen. And it's less than 10 seats for the BJP there. The NDA is not done well. Now, ADMK is also not part of that grouping. So, it's not going to be easy. They have to, and the part is, they have to get 67 more seats than the last time around. BJP itself, is it getting it or not? Let's look at where it is standing right now. 242 seats. The race to 272 because that's the halfway mark. So for us, first that, uske baad jo target set kiya wo if they meet it or not. So where is the BJP right now or the NDA right now? At 174. They need to get another 98 seats out of 301 remaining today. 98 seats to get to this 272 halfway mark. That secures them, as per the News 18 mega opinion poll, a third term. And INDA alliance is at 61. Will they get up close to about 200? Will they become a stronger opposition than they were in 2019? 2024 will we see perhaps a little more opposition and heft for the opposition as far as the parliamentary constituencies and at the centre in parliament is concerned. We'll have to wait and watch. Let's try and break this down before we get comments from our guests here. We already have the numbers for the next most important state, the only bastion in the south where the BJP often has ruled the roost. Irrespective of who's in power at the state, they have returned big gains at the center. The state of Karnataka, the first of the states, the 12 states we're going to cover in this part 2 of the News 18 mega opinion poll. The state of Karnataka, 28 seats, 25 to the NDA, 3 to the Congress, 25-3. Is it the same score as the last time around? JDU this time around with the NDA. Now we are looking at 25-3. Let's look at the vote share in Karnataka. The BJP claimed that despite their loss in the Vidhan Sabha, they net posted a 2% vote share gain. NDA is getting 58% vote share, the Congress with 35% vote share, the other 7% vote share. The calculations, do they actually work? Karnataka, park it there. Let's bring in another state. Let's just jump across to Assam and let's see what's happening in that state. The big brother of the seven sisters in the northeast. This is NDA. 14 में से 12. Others take 2. Nothing for the INDI alliance. So nothing for the Congress party. The others, the 2. If the AIUDF is going it alone, is it the AIUDF or another of the breakaway parties, but not part of the INDI alliance? It is 12 out of 14 seats for the NDA. That means the NDA already breaks into the 200 mark. 211 is the total number out of 284 seats now. So from 242, add another 42 seats, 284. The NDA already is there in Assam with a vote share of 49% NDA, 39% to the INDI alliance. Others are 16%. Overall score goes up to 284 for the NDA. 284 for out of 543. That's the number of seats that we are calling out. 211 for the NDA. INDI alliance 64. That's the score as of now.
Coming here, there are 4 states that we've called before this one. 3 of them were tribal dominated states. Orissa, which is of course on the one side of Bengal. Then you have Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand.
Yeah.
And then you have parts of Andhra and Telangana, of course. So there is a consistent pattern. The tribal vote is moving towards the BJP. Our poll is establishing this. Now, by how much and all of that, one can't say. But there is a definite swing, and therefore the BJP is registering a presence in some of these states. Number two, very importantly, look at data. There were 21 seats where victory margin was less than the third position candidate votes. Now, why was this? Because the TMC had 43% of the vote, the BJP had 40% of the vote. In Southwest, it lost 6 of these seats by between 3%, 0 and 3%. Maybe, I don't know, those seats have come back. One of those seats, and in the overall number out of 21, 11 of 21 the TMC led by the slimmest of margins. 8 out of 21 the BJP led by the slimmest of margins. So there can be flux. It's difficult to call this one. There's an equal vote share. But the growth is happening on the BJP side of the fence.
Yeah.
The 42, 43%, in fact, I think the TMC has lost a percent if it's at 42.
Yes.
And the BJP is picked up 2%.
Yeah, and
that tells you that
it's picked up from the left and it's picked up from some of the others. Professor Dinesh Washni is with us.
Let's talk about
Tibrewal is with us.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come back to Zaka Jacob, as I say, and Manojit Mandal is also with us. Some poor bandwidth with Manojit Mandal. We'll try and sort that out and make up for it. Let's look at 2019. Yes, Zaka.
The vote share, the BJP's vote share has gone up by 2% from 40% to 42%, and the TMC's has slipped by about 1.2% from 43.2 down to 42. But I think, what is fascinating for me, Anand, Rahul, Chopin, is, look, this is the southwestern part of Bengal. The BJP had maximized in these seats last time around. What our poll is suggesting is that they'll get more in the southwestern part. Here in the southeastern part, which is south and north 24 Parganas, you have districts like Nadia, Malda, all of that, all the way up till here. This is where the TMC dominated in the last election. This poll is suggesting that the TMC's dominance in the southeastern part and also in the central eastern part of Bengal will reduce if it turns out that the BJP gets 25 and the TMC gets 17. Of course, the BJP had a big presence in the north of Bengal as well last time around.
Yeah.
That seems to be the case this time around as well. For me, the fascinating thing is that, again, I reiterate, this poll happened before the CAA. These are the parts that border Bangladesh. These are the parts where the TMC has done exceptionally well, not just in the Lok Sabha of 2019, but more in the Assembly of 2021. If we have a poll, Smita.
Mamata Banerjee has sustained a, quote, major injury, says TMC. There's a picture that they have posted on Twitter. She seems to have a head injury. If you want to show the picture. She seems to have had a head injury and she's bleeding in the head, and there's some stitch marks on her head. Their word is that she's had, and it looks pretty bad. The picture, I don't know whether you can zoom
yeah,
in.
it's an unfortunate turn of events. She is at the SSKM hospital and she has had some injury there right at the center. It's on her forehead. We are just trying to ensure that the visuals can be a little disturbing as we put it right away. So we'll just put it and treat it a bit and then put it out. But that's the update that's just come. Professor Dinesh Washni, Priyanka Tibrewal with us, and we also have Manojit Mandal. Now this is an instance, we'll try and connect with Kamalika to try and understand what has happened because they've showed that she has sustained injury, and it's the Trinamool Congress AITMC official handle that has tweeted and said, our chairperson Mamata official sustained a major injury. Please keep her in your prayers. So this is what is the update. We've got the pictures. We'd not put it out on air right now. We just treat it a bit and then put it out. Now that's an unfortunate turn of events, but we'll go back to Kamalika and get an update as to what happened, where it happened in just a bit. Right now, staying back and keeping the focus on the News 18 mega opinion poll at this point, Professor Dinesh Washni, the left is nowhere in sight. It's a two-way fight between the BJP and the Trinamool right now.
Let's get to Bengal, the region-wise break.
Rahul Shivshankar, Nistula Hebbar, Javed Ansari and Tehseen Punapala.
Can I
and then you can take it to them. Yeah.
First of all, with respect to the opinion poll, I went home yesterday I analyze Tamil Nadu, and I'm going to say this on TV. It is impossible the BJP gets 5 seats in Tamil Nadu. It is impossible. Anand, I can guarantee you, with a lot of respect, you guys cannot tell me the 5 seats they're getting. I respect your poll. I respect it's a science. I have a lot of respect for this, for the pollsters. I'm sure they spoke to all these people. But 5 seats for the BJP, and I didn't react yesterday.
Right.
It is impossible. Impossible. Okay. I can understand there's a fight in Coimbatore. Okay. I can understand there's a fight
in
Kanyakumari.
Can we take the story forward?
With the Hindu, you cover Tamil Nadu very, very closely.
Sorry,
just give me 30 seconds. Sorry, I'm sorry. Just allow me, please. Except for these 2 constituencies, can you tell me as of today, is the BJP seriously in a fight? I'm not saying that the Prime Minister has not gone there the most after any political state. I'm not saying they're not making waves. I'm not saying the organization is charged. I mean, it simply isn't there. If this is true, I should give up political analysis. It doesn't exist. Okay. Nobody is giving them those.
Now, hold on to
you
that.
think 5 seats?
Yeah.
5 seats, I find it a little difficult to swallow, because I still think that the BJP's project for Tamil Nadu, which operates as all such political projects do at the organizational level, at a community consolidation, vote bank consolidation level, and at the narrative level, there's been a lot of push there. But it is still a project in the making.
Okay, let's come back to
Coimbatore and Kanyakumari.
Let's come back. I'll tell you what. You can. Now, Tehseen, we can agree to disagree, and let's park it there. Because 1 minute, sir. History is evident.
How does this become a...
Look, I've also
come back to Karnataka. No, come back to Karnataka. You are in power in the state, and you still are gaining 2 seats out of the 28. So let's talk about
that. Let me tell you, this is a very interesting point that both Shivani and you are raising. Yes, the Congress won, but the research shows, and I've gone all the way back to the 80s,
yeah, that's true.
Karnataka has a unique voter behavior pattern. Yeah. So in 84 was the general election, 85 was the assembly election. The Janata Party under Hegde did poorly in the Lok Sabha but won the assembly. On the last 4 occasions, 2008, 2009, BJP formed a coalition government, if you remember, didn't get the numbers. Yediyurappa opened the gates for the BJP in 2008 in that particular state. Massive celebration, a little short. Guess what happens? In 2009, so technically
seats.
No one won, but the BJP does very well.
Yeah,
it wins. Yeah. 2/3 in the Lok Sabha. 2013, 2014, Congress wins. Siddha wins, but the BJP wins the Lok Sabha.
Correct.
Okay? That's the Modi wave, the beginning of it.
Yes.
2018, 2019, JDS and Congress win that election. Of course, in 2019, BJP gets 25 out of 28, historic mandate for it. This time, history favors the BJP.
Yeah.
It has lost the assembly, could end up winning the Lok Sabha.
And
So history said. Now, the problem for the BJP is South. And let me just focus on this. It's very interesting. The reasons, even at the height of its wave, when Yediyurappa swept through in 2008 assembly, guess what happened? The BJP won only 11 out of the 61 states in these 10 districts in the South Karnataka. And in 2019, where did those 3 seats go? To the other side, in South Karnataka. That's why JDS is in the mix. The Vokaliga factor, Old Mysuru region.
But
here's what these numbers.
Here's what
if you look at these numbers, the South, actually, they've done better here.
No, actually, in the South, last time around, the one seat that the BJP did not get was the one that Revana won for the JDS. But this time around, this is a +1 actually for the Congress. So right. Congress is gaining in the South, 1 seat. And they're also gaining in the North. The BJP had swept the North. They're sweeping coastal Karnataka still, 3 out of 3. And of course, this is one in Bangalore. This was the DK Suresh seat. Yeah. He's going to be, their incumbent candidate. So this is 4-1 last time around, 3-0 last time around. This was 11. And this was 8 for them, but this was with the JDS.
BJP is only contesting 20 seats, at least as of now. Declared
20. As of now. No, so they've declared 25.
Okay.
They've only declared
3 to JDS.
And 10 out of those.
No, they've only declared 20 till now. There's still 8 to go, out of which we have heard 2 to 3 seats to Mr. Gowda and family.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to go.
Mr. Gowda's family.
And his family, yes. And about and the rest of it BJP will be fighting on its own. And
so it can't do better than it did last time.
No, it can't, but it
If
has
it
to
finds
repeat.
25 seats,
But it has
will
to
need a
repeat.
100% strike rate to win 25.
But it still needs to get to 3.
No, but the point,
370.
The
there
larger
are two
picture
things they
is
need to worry about. One is that they let go of the Lingayat vote just before
Completely.
the assembly election. So they have a problem of reconsolidating it. They did some
WeChat are coming back.
no, they did
WeChat
some,
are
yeah, they did some repair
WeChat
work.
BY
They got
Vijayendra, party president, yeah.
They got
State
Yediyurappa's son, BY Vijayendra, as party president. If you look at the list of 20, they've got B.S. Bommai and former Chief Minister, Lingayat face, etc., etc. They're trying to put their best foot forward there. They've removed some people. They've got the Mysore Maharaja. So in South Karnataka, as Rahul said, of course, that is actually their Achilles heel. The Vokkaliga vote doesn't go to the BJP,
Correct.
which is why they said that, okay, this time round we will have an alliance with Mr. Gowda. Mr. Gowda has his back to the wall. It's a question of survival for his political party. After his dismal showing in the Karnataka Assembly election, we were all together here when we saw it. So he agreed.
To add to what she's saying, there's a very good data point, sir, which you might be interested in knowing. Whenever the BJP allies, it gains from the alliance, not necessarily the other way.
Because they will help in
Yes,
other
Javed ji.
seats in
Sorry.
South
Javed, we
Karnataka.
got 3 guests with us. Sanjay Kumar of CSDC is with us. CSDS. Our Sardar RP Singh is also with us, and Shujat Ali, leader Congress, and Sumant Raman is also with us. But yes, Javed ji.
The word coming out of Karnataka is that the BJP stands to gain big time from the alliance, and less so Mr. Gowda. Mr. Gowda, if you speak to him, he says, you know, I was not for it, but what to do? He blames the Congress for pushing him into the lap of the BJP. But be that as it may, it's BJP's to gain. And BJP has a tough task ahead, even repeating 2019.
Correct.
It won't be that easy for them. And this time, if there is a Congress unit which is active and organized in this country, it's Karnataka.
Sanjay Kumar ji is with us. Sanjay Kumar ji, your thoughts, sir? On the News 18 mega opinion poll, 284 seats out and 25-3 is the score as far as Karnataka is concerned. Sanjay ji.
More or less on the expected line. There may be disagreement about one state or two states. Say, I know that there is a disagreement about Tamil Nadu, whether BJP will be able to win 5 seats or not, whether BJP will be able to win 2 seats in Kerala or not. But more or less, if I look at the big picture is more or less on the same lines, that BJP is holding on very strong, NDA is very strong, and in 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the India alliance seems to be weakened. About Karnataka, there is a lot of debate about Karnataka. Yes, we have seen in the past that Congress can manage to win elections in the state assembly, but when it comes to the Lok Sabha election, it's a very different kind of voting, especially in Karnataka, and we have seen that happening in many other states as well. You have been mentioning, Narasimhan, that the Modi is on the big, is on the the vote is for the Modi, and Prime Minister Modi is a vote puller for the BJP in the Lok Sabha election. That's likely to happen even in 2024 Lok Sabha election. So as I said, to conclude, I'm not surprised. I may be surprised a little bit by the extent of victory which the opinion poll is suggesting. I'm also a little skeptical about Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
Kerala and Tamil Nadu, a lot of discussion points and conversation points around Kerala and Tamil Nadu because of the seat share projections. We have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the methodology is that each Lok Sabha constituency, 3 Vidhan Sabha areas have been each Lok Sabha seat, 3 Vidhan Sabha constituencies have been covered. 218 interviews in every constituency, every Lok Sabha seat has been done. So this is feedback from.
Fine.
No, I'm just saying this is feedback from the ground. Please,
No,
people can challenge, accept, disagree. That's true. I'm just putting out the methodology.
I'm glad that this is a poll which is showing the methodological details. Absolutely fine. Very good. But that doesn't guarantee.
No, that's true.
Absolutely. The other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we have to also tell you very, very clearly that these are all projections. The number that we need to keep in mind at this point is the BJP saying 370. Right now, if it is not gaining 3 more seats in Karnataka, it is not moving towards the 370 number.
Precisely.
We have to understand that so far it's holding ground. Yesterday or day 1 of the News 18 mega opinion poll, Rahul Shivshankar had surmised that there is about a 12 to 15 seat gain for the NDA overall, not necessarily for the BJP.
It hasn't started with a gain. It might end up with a few losses. We don't know. Our opinion polls suggest that it is holding steady. But you know, fundamentally, there is a sense of anxiety. You would not be getting rid of 10 sitting MPs and bringing in another 10 if there was no. And the focus is again in that Mysuru South region. That's the Achilles heel. So, Dr. Aman, do you believe the BJP has done enough to secure itself in this South Karnataka area where it has traditionally been weak? In 2 assembly elections that it lost, it only got about 11 out of 61 seats in these 10 districts.
Now, one particular issue that I want to point out, Rahul, is that the JDS is not the JDS it was maybe 10 years ago. So, and we saw that in the assembly election. One very important factor, the Muslim vote in Karnataka, particularly in the old Mysore region, used to be divided between the JDS and the Congress. Now, with this alliance going to the BJP, that Muslim vote is going to go away from JDS and is going to